I'm sorry, Senator, I don't... Yep, they're on.
Hello. One at a time, does he turn them on?
You'll turn each mic on when it's time for us to speak. Can I ask people to come to their seats? We're going to start in just a minute.
And if any of you on the floor come to the microphone to speak or ask a question, I'm told that on the screen you'll be able to see the clock, so it's still there. Can I start the meeting?
Can we let people in?
I'd like to have something to, a book or something here. Do we have anything?
You've not been let in yet, all right.
How are you going to tell me when we start recording?
Okay, people are in now.
Welcome everyone, it's very, very good to see you. This is our first meeting online and in person, our first hybrid meeting. So can you please bear with us? It would be very, very appreciated. And it's good to see so many people in person today. So thank you very, very much. It's lovely to see you. In terms of housekeeping, can I remind you, you are all responsible for your own conduct, whether you are in person or online. So thank you again for, please, can you remember that and be very careful what you say. We're now going to have a hybrid for the first time. So if the people in the room, anyone wants to come to the microphone is to the left of me, and a message is going to pop up on screen for people that are going to be asking to speak on Zoom. So please, whatever way you come to speak, you will be very, very welcome. Good to see you. Please do have your name and your constituency. And if anyone who is on Zoom doesn't have their name, and we see names like iPad, Family, Cohen, Paul, or whatever it is, I'm really sorry that you may find that you are told to leave the meeting or you're removed from the meeting. But it's very, very good to see you. So thank you very much for that. Can I start the meeting? First of all, I want to have this opportunity to thank Geoffrey Leader for his phenomenal work as Director of Picua. He's worked for the board for an amazing, incredible 25 years of loyal service. I think you'll all agree that that is good. In the room, we have a fantastic clap. I have to say, Geoffrey, you certainly deserve a medal and a lot more, and you certainly deserved your MBE. You have made an outstanding contribution to British Jewry. You were the Deputy Head and Head Teacher of Jewish Day Schools Sinai and Simon Marks, and together with the amazing Doreen Samuels, you were responsible for the creation of the Chief Rabbi's Siddur for Children. You also played a key role in professionalising Jewish studies and teaching through funding, establishing new partnerships and working with national educational institutions. and you were previously an Ofsted inspector, which was invaluable, and you were one of the founders of Pikuach, the Jewish Schools Inspection Service, and we are very, very grateful for all of that work. And we know that recently you've still been working very hard. You've helped put together another project on Jewish spiritual development and well-being for children in Jewish schools. You've shown immense leadership and dedication to supporting the community locally as well. You've been in Beehive Lane for an incredible 52 years, also supporting education. There are really no words, Geoffrey, that we can say to thank you for all that you have done, and we wish you a very well-deserved and peaceful retirement. Can we also welcome Janine Rose, who's going to be the new Executive Director of Pikuach, and we all wish her luck in this role. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. So, the minutes of February 2022 were sent to deputies. I haven't had any comment on the minutes. I'm just checking participants. No hands. I will take the minutes as approved. Thank you very much. Can we now move on? We have an honour to have present today Her Excellency Melinda Simmons, who is the ambassador from the UK to Ukraine, who's going to join us via Zoom. It's incredible that Her Excellency is giving us the time from what must be her incredibly busy and difficult schedule, but it's very, very important that we all hear from you. So over to you, Your Excellency, and thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I hope you can hear me okay. So my name is Melinda Simmons. I'm the British Ambassador to Ukraine. I've been in this role for 2.5 years. I spent 18 months of that time dealing with the response to the pandemic and 12 months of that time dealing with the run-up to and the existence of this war. So I think it's fair to say this is not the posting that I thought I was going to have. It has been a challenge all the way through. I thought it might be helpful to talk about how I'm experiencing this and what the government is now doing. I guess I'll talk for about 10 minutes. I think it's probably good to start by saying that I've been tracking this since March last year. What happened in March last year is that troops began to arrive on Ukraine's border, more than the usual amount, which is to say that there were troops on Crimea, but more began to build up, a quite concerning number to build up all the way around the north and the east of the country. And we spent a good 4 or 5 months lobbying in the international system to call Russia to account for the presence of those troops. And eventually they said that they were there for a military exercise, and then they performed a military exercise and then said it was over and they were pulling everyone back. But they didn't pull everyone back. They pulled the kit back about 60 miles or so, and the troops simply rotated. And that meant that from about September onwards, I watched and colleagues watched in mounting disbelief as a preparation began for something that anybody who knew anything about Ukraine knew would be a massive miscalculation on the part of Russia. Anybody who has ever spent time in Ukraine and got to know Ukrainians will know that they are highly individualist people who are determined to build their own future and who have been living with this aggression from Russia for a very long time and would fight. And our understanding was that President Putin thought that an invasion would probably not last longer than 48 hours to a week at max, and that they would be greeted on the boulevards by Ukrainians waving flowers. And so it was a pretty horrifying time, which I spent and which others spent, doing everything we could to represent to Russia and to others that that was not what would happen, that what would happen would be bloody violence in which thousands would be killed. I'm sorry to say it gives me no pleasure at all to be proved right by that. That's exactly what's happening. And I think what perhaps we may not, any of us, have counted for is that Putin, having now worked out that that is what it is, shows no signs of pulling back. On the contrary, he's doubling down. And in so doing, he has committed already, in 2.5, 3 weeks of this conflict, several war crimes, most about the deliberate targeting of civilians. Even 5 minutes ago, I've been talking with the government of Ukraine about the targeting of a school at which 200 children were sheltering. So this is a tragedy upon horror upon tragedy that I'm working with. I stayed in Kiev for as long as I possibly could, until just before bombing started. And I received an instruction to leave on a Friday night at about 8, 9 o'clock. And since the skies were closed at that point, I left by car very quickly and drove to Lviv, which is about an 8-hour drive. It's an interesting thing that when I left, I had one suitcase packed. That was it. That was all I was going to take with me. And my military colleagues suggested that there was room in the car for one more. So I opened another bag very quickly, threw a load of stuff in it. And when we arrived in Lviv and I unpacked, I looked closely at what I put in, and everything in my second bag was not stuff that I needed, stuff to wear or stuff for personal care. All of it was mementos of my last couple of years. And when I look back on why I did that, and the fact that it now means I'm living in one sweater or one jacket, one pair of trousers, I realized actually that my first suitcase was all about my physical health and my second suitcase was all about my mental health. I really needed to gather together things that represented all that we had been able to do positively in the previous couple of years, to remind myself that that was going to be the future, that this conflict would come to an end and we would work again in the way that we had with the government of Ukraine. I left Lviv after there were 2 missile strikes, one to the west and one to the east of Lviv. And on both occasions, because it was unclear where those missiles were going to land, at very short notice, I and my colleagues had to put on bulletproof kit and shelter in our rooms, once under a bathroom sink and once behind a door next to a cupboard. And after the second time we did that, and on both cases, of course, these missiles didn't land near us, but still we had to take precautions. I decided that was too much to ask of my colleagues. And so we pulled back to the other side of the border in Poland, and that now is where I live. I commute between Warsaw and the border, and there are 7 border crossings from Poland alone to Ukraine. And those border crossings are seeing thousands upon thousands of Ukrainians fleeing the country. At the moment, most of them from the east and centre of the country, but I can pretty confidently predict that sometime soon, those who have taken shelter in the west will likewise find the need to come across into Poland, Romania, Slovakia, Hungary, and so on. And this is an absolutely enormous humanitarian crisis. So what are I and my colleagues now doing, now that we're poised on the other side of the border? Well, aside from eyeing the situation in the west of Ukraine so that I can get back in as quickly as I possibly can, which remains my primary objective, I'm the ambassador to Ukraine, and I want to be inside Ukraine so that I can work alongside Ukrainians as soon as it's possible to do that. We're trying to get our own staff out. We have Ukrainian staff who are trapped in Kiev and in Kiev Oblast and in other parts of the country. We are helping Ukrainians who cross the border and decide that the UK is where they want to go. We work together with the Home Office, who have visa centres and rapid deployment teams along that border. We work with several other countries also present in those border locations to coordinate the way in which we are delivering not just humanitarian need, but also military kit. We are all invested, those of us who support Ukraine, in helping them be able to push back this invasion for as long as they possibly can. And that military effort is enormous. And at the moment, it sits alongside the humanitarian effort at the border. But what we also have to do, and this is really hard for me and my colleagues, while we're focusing on, if you like, trying to save lives, trying to pull people out of Ukraine, what we also have to do, we have to look to the future. There are 2 parts to the future. One is about justice. It's not too soon to be recording crimes that have been committed, encouraging those who have crossed the border to talk about their experiences so that we can put together those stories, which will provide evidence. Deal with the already emerging allegations of widespread rape of women who have been left behind, largely older women who have been less able to travel in the east of the country and in Kharkiv. And to talk now, hard as it is, about reconstruction and about reconciliation. Reconstruction will be an enormous plan. And we need to think about it now so that we can be ready for when the time comes. And we have to think about reconciliation. One of the things I noticed, even in the first week of the conflict, even as I was just in Lviv, was how many Ukrainians were becoming radicalized by the experience of this war. It's important to understand that Ukrainians and Russians have lived side by side for centuries. A lot of Ukrainians have family in Russia. They have a lot of them business interests in Russia and the other way around. But this invasion is severing those ties in the worst way. And I do think that one of the things that will happen as a result of this, leaving aside the big geopolitics for a minute, is that connection that enabled people to be able to stay together, even as President Putin's policies were trying to push it apart, I fear that may have irrevocably severed. And that's something that the British government and others are going to need to try to help people work through and come to terms with, particularly those who still have family in Russia and family in Russia who appear to support the invasion. Disinformation has enabled that split. Finally, I just want to spend 2 minutes on why is the British government putting so much effort into this conflict? I can pretty certainly say that before this happened, most Brits would have struggled to name Ukraine on a map. So I think it's important to remember, I'm just going to adjust this for a second, there we go. I think it's important to remember that this invasion, though it started with that troop build up a year ago, truth is it didn't just start a year ago. It didn't start in 2014 when President Putin annexed Crimea. It didn't start when Ukraine became independent nearly 31 years ago. It's been going on for centuries. If you speak to older people in the west of Ukraine, they will tell you very wryly that they've lived in 7 different countries in their lives, but they've never left their village. Ukraine is a country that historically, over several centuries, has been occupied and occupied and occupied again. And in response to that, Ukraine has fought and fought and fought for their independence, which they finally got formally after the Chernobyl explosion, which precipitated a deal that gave them independence. They have fought for the right to be able to determine for themselves the kind of country they want to live in. And the kind of country they want to live in embodies democratic values. And I firmly believe that it is those democratic values that are the threat to President Putin, not the potential for NATO membership, not the presence of foreign troops, not any of those things that Putin wrote in his deranged essay last year, but about the presence of a strong and confident democratic country on his border. That's what they're fighting for. And those democratic values, those are our values too. Those are the values that our government, our country, that Jews camp on, that define us. That's why we're supporting them the way that we are. They're fighting their fight for Ukraine, but they are also fighting the fight for values that we all share. Thank you.
Can I please thank you on behalf of the whole community for talking to us today? And I know that all of our hearts and thoughts are with you. The entire community is appalled by this terrible war wrought upon Ukraine by Putin and Russia that is causing such awful death and destruction. Thank you for everything you are doing. I know that we as a community will want to help in any way that we can. Thank you again. Thank you. Another clap. Thank you. Can we also ask to come to the microphone? And in fact, it is our honour, Maurice Helfgott, because you are the first person to come to the microphone in person to speak since the pandemic began. And we're very grateful you coming to speak to us today as Chair of World Jewish Relief. And of course, we always want to give huge thanks to Ben Helfgott, who's been so much a part of the board family. I know that Maurice has said that he will take a couple of questions afterwards. So the floor.
Zoom call. Okay. Tech team, please sort that out.
So, apologies, this is our first hybrid meeting, so can you all bear with us at home?
On the Zoom call, can you hear me? And I'm also not sure where the camera is, so where should I be
Yes,
looking
you can
for
be
the Zoom
heard.
call?
You can be heard, can't you?
You can be heard and seen.
The Zoom call, am I looking at the camera? Where is it?
You're looking like you're on the
up there.
side.
Look
Okay.
there. Start again, Maurice. Apologies
We'll
for that.
start
Thank you,
again.
everybody.
Apologies.
That's quite all right.
The floor is
and
yours.
That's quite all right. I know we are all extremely moved by what Ambassador Simmons just said. I personally feel extraordinarily proud to have her as the British ambassador to Ukraine, and to have her as a strong and incredibly articulate and powerful member of our British Jewish community. I'd like to start by thanking Marie and the honorary officers, the executive of the Board of Deputies, and to all you members of the plenary and the organisations you represent. World Jewish Relief is the humanitarian and development agency of the British Jewish community. The appeal and the response that we are making is your appeal and your response, formally endorsed and formally acting on your behalf. And I come here to offer you this brief and this update and to answer your questions specifically on that behalf. I'd also like to say that it is a privilege, as you say, Marie, to come and address you for the first time in this hybrid manner. I was last attended the Board of Deputies, I think in 1983 at Woburn House, when I sat at the back, when my dad, as he always did every Sunday, participated and contributed. So this is an incredibly important institution of British Jewry, and I'm very glad to have the opportunity to brief you on what we're doing on your behalf. So I don't need to tell you, World Jewish Relief was set up by the British Jewish community in the 1930s to rescue Jews from Germany and Austria. It brought my father subsequently, as a survivor of the Holocaust, to Great Britain and rehabilitated him and the many other boys. And since then, it has rescued Jews from all over the world. It has been part of responding to the Jewish redevelopment in Ukraine for the last 30 years. And right now, we are applying the expertise of our team, that is development, emergency, relief, disaster expertise in 20 countries around the world to the Ukraine situation. On the day that the war started, we had 29 established partners all over the country. And many of those partners are still operating. We are in touch with them every day. We have been able to help rescue 15,000 people so far. And our number one priority is to continue to do those rescues. Just this weekend, there is an active rescue going on of Jews and others from Melitopol to Zaporozhye, and also to get food and medical supplies into Ukraine. The overwhelming majority of our priority is that. That's where the urgent need is. So we have set up a supply chain from Britain, from Spain, from Poland, through a hub into Lviv, and then on as far south and as far east as we possibly can, using our partners to deliver a combination of cash, medicine, and urgently needed food. We are also helping on the borders. Through the JCC in Krakow, in Kishinev in Moldova, we are providing relief, redirection and support. And of course, here in the UK, we have been working with the Board of Deputies, with the JLC, with other organisations, directly with the government to help shape the humanitarian response welcoming refugees, and to make sure that that is as good as it can be. So you will know that there is, we have already registered over 1,000 people, principally, but not exclusively from the Jewish community, who have registered interest in taking refugees into their home or providing accommodation for them. And at the same time, because of the way that the scheme works, we are identifying individuals and families that are known to us in Ukraine or fleeing for Ukraine that we hope to match. The scheme and the way it works is far from perfect and far from clear, and many, many details still need to be worked out. But the view World Jewish Relief is taking is a practical view, a constructive view, is working with the parties to make it as effective as possible while trying to influence for as much positive change. So what do I ask on your behalf of you from your members and the message to go out? The first is, people ask again and again, how can I help? And the answer, overwhelmingly, is money. What we need is to deliver funds. We have an organization that is professional and effective. The most important thing to do is to continue to raise the money. We have already deployed more than 50% of the money we've raised, and every day we are deploying more. So that is the most important message that please you can get over to people. It's a controversial subject, but gifts in kind often do not get to where they're supposed to get, and sometimes get in the way. So if you want to know what to do, the most important message that all responsible leaders can get over is to encourage people to give. And the giving is not the normal giving. I don't know about you, but so far this morning, I've had 4 different Charity Extra campaigns on my WhatsApp. I will respond to my friends, I will respond to all of them. This is not the only important thing that's going on in the world, but this is an urgent humanitarian catastrophe at a scale and of an urgency which is unparalleled, certainly in my lifetime. And we need to encourage everybody to understand that the need to give according to their capacity is not their regular gift. It's very many multiples of their regular gift. To dig deep and to encourage friends and others to do the same. And the second thing is to spread that message, to keep up to date with what's going on, to spread the message and translate our desire to help through action to help, through a British Jewish organization which is professional, which has been built up over 90 years, and which can and is making a difference today. I'd be delighted to answer any questions. Thank you very much.
Can I say we are all incredibly grateful for your work and for the work that you are doing at World Jewish Relief. We're incredibly proud of everything you're doing, and I know that that community will dig deep. I'm going to take some questions. Apologies if not all of you can have the opportunity to ask your question. So this will be our first hybrid question. So Deborah Cohen, you were first. Would you like to ask your question? Please give the name and address of your constituency. And on the floor, the first person to ask a question is Jerry Lewis. So would you like to make your way near the stand? Thank you. Deborah.
Thank you very much, President, and thank you to both of our speakers. I guess I won't be surprised if you can't answer this question, but I have to ask this because we're being recorded and lots of people watch these recordings. What I'm asking about is, when is this government going to let Ukrainian refugees into the country to match the numbers of us who have volunteered to host these refugees? This is beyond belief that absolutely nothing on any scale is happening right now. I just want to put that out there. And I also want to say, thank God for World Jewish Relief. What would we do without them? Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah.
Morris.
I would just like to say thank you for that endorsement and encouragement. It is very, very much appreciated.
Thank you. And as you will appreciate, Deborah, Morris unfortunately doesn't have control over when refugees will be let in, but everyone is doing their best. Thank you. Jerry, would you like to come to the stand? Apologies, Morris, you'll have to step back. Jerry, thank you.
Jerry Lewis, Hampstead, very pleased to be one of the first.
The first person asking a question since the pandemic. Yes, indeed.
And as father of the board, can I just congratulate, on behalf of all the deputies, congratulate the staff of the board for making this meeting possible and for doing all the facilities.
Yeah. We might as well have a picture of the moment, Jerry.
Your father will be very pleased.
It's quite a moment.
It's a simple question. Yes, I heard your plea for people to say, put this charity first, it's the most important. I have no disagreement with that. What I am worried with is the effect on seeing so many adverts in the national press and especially the Jewish press, all pleading the same cause. Can you give us an inkling as to the coordination between, for example, the fundraising you are doing massively on behalf of the community and some of the smaller units in our community who are also doing activities, some of them Haredi, some of them not. Is it being coordinated? Is it not? And I just end with one reference to a former member of the board, a good friend of mine, David Lewis, no relation, from Hull. And he phoned me up the other day and said, I've got piles of bedding. What do I do? I spoke to Henry Grunwald. Henry said, money rather than goods. But there seems to be an absence of guidance in this particular area. But I'm most concerned about the duplication of effort. And if the money being spent on adverts by all the different groups was spent on Ukraine, it would be far better. Thank you.
So thank you, Jerry. I'm glad to have the opportunity to make this point. I first made the point that the World Jewish Relief Campaign is your campaign. It is the official campaign of the Board of Deputies, the JLC, the Sephardi movement, the United Synagogue, the Chief Rabbi, the Reform, the Masorti, the Liberal, the ZYC, the Union of Jewish Students, the London Forum. I may have forgotten a few. It is the official campaign of all those organizations, and within 4 hours of Putin announcing that the republics would be his, according to him, all those organizations signed on to that one single campaign. Magnificent. Thank you. Secondly, major and other Jewish organizations have phoned us up. British Ort, who have operations in Ukraine, said, we don't want to raise money separately. We want to tell our supporters, raise money for World Jewish Relief, and you will deliver. Jewish Care has decided that its Pesach appeal will not be for its core activity, but will be for the World Jewish Relief Campaign on this occasion. UJA and NIF, New Israel Fund, both of whom have activities and interests in Israel, said, we are going to do something for the Ukraine crisis in Israel, which is part of it, where some refugees are arriving, but we're making it clear in our communications that the main event is in Ukraine and helping Ukraine and go to World Jewish Relief. So I would say that the overwhelming approach of the community has been extremely coordinated and communal. It's hugely too much appreciated and effective, and thank you for that. Secondly, in terms of coordination between organizations, the professional team of World Jewish Relief is in daily and effective contact with the JDC based out of New York, but all around the world, a major Jewish humanitarian organization focused on Ukraine, with the Jewish Agency for Israel, with Olam, with many of the universal organizations, including the Red Cross, Comic Relief, many organizations. Coordination is a big professional priority. Finally, yes, there are organizations, individuals, people who are doing other things. Many of those things are good. Many of those things are effective. And a combined noise, no doubt, will raise the amount of attention and raise the funds raised, raise the amount of funds achieved. Of course, we would like to see as much coordinated as possible, and we're doing that. We provide people with the information. People make their own choices. Thank you.
I know that we're eating slightly into time for the President's statement, but people do want to ask questions, and we're very grateful to you. So we can only allow one more. I'm really sorry to everybody online. Joy Wolf, you were next. Thank you, and apologies to William and Susie. Would Joy unmute?
Thank you, President. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
I know it's not your particular sphere, Maurice, but I'm very concerned that this wonderful field hospital that's been set up in Ukraine by Israel, and I'm very concerned that knowing the inhumanity of Putin in targeting schools and hospitals, what sort of protection that is having. Do you have any idea? I mean, it's the most marvelous setup, and Israel is to be congratulated, but I'm seriously concerned about its safety, and I'm wondering if anybody knows or what precautions are in place.
I'm afraid, Joy, I simply don't have any information or couldn't possibly comment. I've come to recognise over the decades that the Israelis do know how to look after themselves, so I very much hope and believe they are doing so, but I can't add anything to that.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. We'd really like to thank you for your time. Maurice.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much. We are very grateful. Thank you. We are so fortunate to have so many incredible leaders in our community, and we can stand proud. So thank you. Coming on now to the President's statement. Can I thank deputies, including Josh Lee, that have written to me about the passing of an incredibly influential Rabbi Chaim Kanievsky. He died in Israel at the age of 94. I understand that his funeral is going to be today. There are going to be about 600 people at least attending. 600,000, apologies, I misspoke, which is incredible. He was so widely renowned for his encyclopedic knowledge of Jewish law and absolute dedication to the Torah. There's a very, very good write-up and article in the Jewish Chronicle. He also was very, very clear about backing social distancing, and he was working, studying right to the end, one of the most inspirational and authoritative leaders of our time. And may the Almighty comfort his family among the mourners of Zion and Jerusalem. So thank you for that. Coming on to the President's statement, a large part of the statement has dealt with the community being absolutely appalled at the Russian war and Putin against Ukraine. We've seen and we've heard the terrible death and destruction that is literally on our TV screens day and night. We cannot believe in this modern age that this has happened, and we are inspired by the resolve of the Ukrainian people and President Zelensky. We absolutely pray for peace. As an organisation, we have been attending a number of meetings so that we can do our bit. These meetings are often called at short notice. Just to confirm that on Friday, very late, just before Shabbat, I was asked to attend a meeting for the Department of Levelling Up Housing and Communities that again has spoke about how the scheme is going to work in practice. This is a sponsorship scheme, so families need to be matched up. There are concerns still about security and safeguarding. I did ask, what about children and unaccompanied minors? I'm myself a descendant of someone from the kinder transport, and as a community, we feel refugees and unaccompanied children are so very, very important. We all want to help, but this scheme is not for unaccompanied children and minors. We can only hope, as Deborah Cohen asked in her question, that we do have refugees here shortly. So we are standing ready as a community to help. I also made sure that I went in person to see the Ukrainian rabbi, Ken Zanowski, and he was very pleased to have contact from the Jewish community because he'd been installed during lockdown. And since then, he's been put in touch with CST, he's been put in touch with local communities, has been invited to Friday night dinners, and has all sorts of support, but also is waiting to be able to help refugees. Can I ask if anyone else has questions for the President's statement, either from the floor or from online. I can see a couple of hands that have gone up. I'm just going to have some water, forgive me, very quickly. So online, I'm going to take Susie first, followed by William Baginski, Susan Pascoe, and Jackie Sevitt. So if you can stand ready. I haven't yet got anyone on the floor, but it looks like they're happy for you to ask the questions online. Susie. I can't hear Susie.
Can you now?
Yes, we can hear you. Nice to see you as well.
And you. Hello, everybody. Susie Rabinovich, Hampstead Garden Suburb Synagogue. Marie, do you know, in terms of refugees, whether the Jewish Ukrainian refugees are being asked whether they would prefer to come into Jewish homes for reasons of kashrut, community, whatever, and if so, whether World Jewish Relief are going to be able to facilitate that?
Sorry, there's an echo from Susie's. From what I've heard, the system, the sponsorship system, is one of matching. So for it to work, it would need to be a family that knows another family, and certainly in the community, I've had lots of people come forward. For example, Manchester, a number of families have said we can take in Orthodox families. Others have said, can we take in non-Orthodox? And there is, I think, what I would say, a self-matching as far as possible, because this is what the sponsorship scheme is about, that there has to be sponsorship. And of course, people's different religious beliefs or no beliefs do need to be respected. And I do think that there will be a sensible approach. But when it comes to it, I think anyone will be pleased to come here. Of course they will. But we will do all we can to make sure that people's beliefs are respected. So that doesn't fully answer your question, because we don't have any refugees, but if there is a situation where that isn't being respected, and it can be, it's certainly something that we will raise, and I will raise during our regular meetings. So thank you. William Baginski.
William Baginski, my constituency is the Association of Jewish Refugees, AJR. I would just like to draw attention to part of the statement that the AJR made on Ukraine on the 10th of March, which will be of relevance to anybody in communities who is hosting refugees from Ukraine who were Holocaust survivors. And if I could just read out briefly part of that statement, which says that we, the AJR, stand ready to offer our unique support to any Holocaust survivor from Ukraine who has found refuge in the United Kingdom. In addition to the funds we dispersed granted to us by the Claims Conference, following their negotiations with the German government, the AJR administers its own social welfare assistance that can provide immediate relief. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Thank you. Susan Pascoe. You should be able to unmute.
Yeah, thank you. Susan Pascoe, Israel Community. I wanted to raise a different issue. You said this was issues on your statement, or are we just on Ukraine now?
We're on the president's statement. Okay,
thank you. So I wanted to raise the issue of Amnesty International's executive director in the USA, who said at an event on March the 9th, Amnesty is opposed to the idea that Israel should be preserved as a state for the Jewish people. He subsequently claimed that his comments were taken out of context, but that seems to be inadequate. And it seems that Amnesty's real goal is Middle East without Israel as a Jewish state. Please, can you explain to us why the Board of Deputies hasn't criticised what the USA's executive director has said? Thank you.
We've given a very robust response in relation to what we consider the position to be in relation to Amnesty's response. I don't think we need to actually condemn it further, because we've condemned the report in the strongest terms possible. I'm sure perhaps Jonathan might want to address Amnesty a bit more when he comes to his questions, but we have made the position clear. We can't condemn everybody around the world, because we will never end the situation with Amnesty, and I think we've spoken loudly, we've spoken very clearly, and we've condemned that report. Thank you. It's all noted. We understand the strength of feeling behind the question. Next, please, Jackie Sevitt. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about the delay there. I just wanted to ask President Marie, it's about the issue about MK Smotrich, and in the light of President Herzog saying that the tweets put out about him were insulting and inappropriate, did you think that it perhaps undermined the board being seen to be 100% supportive of Israel and speaking for the broad spectrum of Jews in the UK? Personally, I think it might have been better to raise these concerns privately with the embassy rather than through a tweet. I don't know if Smotrich was here officially, if he approached the board, but I just think the language bordered on the disrespectful, and as obviously it got the president annoyed. And whilst a statement was put out affirming the board's firm support for Israel, I just worry that it gave the impression of not being inclusive, and I would hate the good work that the board is doing to be undermined by the perception that we're all liberal Jews, as had been used as a bit of a slur, and we don't 100% stand behind Israel. Thanks.
Well, thank you for your question. Of course, we stand behind Israel, and some people will be very proud to be liberal Jews or Jews from any denomination. I think we've had a lot of discussion on the Smotrich tweet. Let's remember, he decided to come to the UK and wrote saying that he would be speaking to UK communal organisations. We were perfectly entitled to tell him to go home, that he was not wanted. We are also a democracy in the UK, and Nachman Shai, the minister from the diaspora, fully understood this. He still understood it when I went to see him just about 10 days ago, and he also told Smotrich in his social media that he'd heard from the UK and perhaps he should go home. I know some people have tweeted that they don't like the tone, but so many Israelis have actually said how grateful they are from the tweet. Even when I went on the plane to Israel, people in the street. The fact is, his views are so unacceptable. His views have got such a racist element to them that we do not have to put up with his views in this country. It's got nothing to do with supporting the state of Israel. We have to fight against people with anti-Semitism. We cannot possibly have a good position if we ourselves deal with people that are over racist. And I think that's something that President Herzog does understand. And I think we all need to move on. We've all made our points known. And Israel's a democracy, the Board of Deputies is a democracy, and people have all given their views on this. But I think the board was right to make its feelings known. But I think the time has come for us all to move on to the next issue, and we absolutely all support Israel. Israel is part of all of us. It's certainly hugely important to me. I've been going to Israel since 1969. It's part of my inner identity and love. This was not criticism of Israel. This was criticism of somebody who has got unacceptable racist beliefs. Thank you. The next person, I think, is Flora Frank, and then Anthony Adler.
Okay, thank you very much. Marie and the board, is more an appeal than a question. And whilst I, as an Orthodox Jew, understand the importance of matching, that, you know, I'm talking about the refugees now, we're all very, we're very emotional, we're very upset with what's going on. And chas v'shalom, if God forbid the crunch comes, that we need, there's a sort of an influx of refugees, I would appeal and pray that we Jews and the Orthodox Jews, we take non-Orthodox people into our homes, we take non-Jewish people into our homes, because we have to remember what happened during the Holocaust. People took us in, our families, and I'm a Sephardi, so my family didn't suffer, but it doesn't mean I don't feel and empathize and cry for those families who lost so many. I think I hope the crunch will never come. I hope it will never come, but I think that we have to be much more open and spread out and not worry about the religion and the this and the that, but take anybody into our homes. And that's more of an appeal, and it's also a question. I hope people will share that with me. Thank you.
Flora, I'm so touched at what you've said. That's absolutely right. We hope the crunch will not come, and we should take absolutely any refugee into our homes, love them. We've all got to remember how we were welcomed in this country. So many of us are descendants of refugees. Thank you. That is a fantastic reminder. So as far as possible, I certainly agree that matching should be allowed to happen, but of course we would help anyone. I know we would, and I think the government is suggesting that so many families have offered to take refugees, that there are still refugees, for example, from Afghanistan that are in hostels or hotels, and that we hope that the generosity will also extend to other refugees. Thank you. Anthony Adler. Sorry, I think we've got some echo from an ATO line. It can be turned off.
Hello, I hope you can all hear me. I'm Anthony Adler from St Albans Mizrahi Synagogue. It's a pleasure to address the first hybrid meeting back. And I initially just wanted to thank the ambassador and the World Jewish Relief for addressing it today. I just wanted to set the matter straight, if I may, on Paul O'Brien's comments from Amnesty, and I think it's vitally important that we do so for reasons that I'll come on to in a second. I first actually want to just read some extracts from what he said at the meeting that's been reported, if I may. He was commenting on the 2018 law, and this is a quote: "The state of Israel is preserved for Jews alone and should be theirs alone, and that from a human rights perspective is not equal treatment between the Jewish people and the Palestinian people. But it is really important," I think, he continues, "particularly for those who understand the threats the Jewish people experience over the last several generations. I think it's incumbent on people who engage in this conversation to say, no, I don't think that Israel should be preserved as a state which is one race is legally entitled to oppress another. But yes, I understand the Jewish people have a legitimate concern about their very existence being threatened, and that needs to be part of the conversation." He later went on to talk later in the speech about his position that a safe Jewish state, and that state not to be built on the legal system of disenfranchising people, in that country. I don't think that's a comfort zone for the Jewish community. So I think when we listen to what he said in full, it's a rather more nuanced position, and actually one that really does take into account a lot of concerns and sensitivities that I know a lot of people in our community feel about what it's like to live in a state where the machinery of the state is ranged against you and your community. But I wanted to set the record straight for a really important reason, which is I think actually so often in these cases, we respond from that place of hurt and fear. We hear something that makes us feel threatened as a community, and we respond from that initial feeling of threat, and that nuance is lost, and that nuanced conversation is lost. We need to have nuanced conversations across the board in order to support the two-state solution, which I believe is still the policy of this board, in order to support that with people who we might not necessarily feel initially are our friends and our neighbours, but who actually are our friends and our neighbours. And we need to have this conversation in a nuanced way, because actually to set ourselves against organisations like Amnesty International at this time when we are so concerned about war crimes.
Just a reminder, thank you, Anthony, that the board's clock is on, so we will automatically, unfortunately, lose people that speak beyond their allocated time, but thank you very much. Michael Reich. Can we bear with us, Michael? Thank you. No, we can't.
Okay, I am unmuted now. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I just would like to comment on the fact that I believe up to 15,000 Jews from the Ukraine have gone as refugees to Israel. And this, I know we are mainly concerned, of course, to deal with those coming to the UK. But there are various charities that are dealing with that situation, and particularly the UGIA, and there are Olim charities in Israel. My point is that if people are giving money at the present time to Israeli charities, the time is to look in the same way as we're looking at WJR, to be looking at charities in Israel to help them with the incoming refugees. This is a major situation whereby in Israel is taking whichever Jews are coming to Israel at this moment in time. And I'm not sure if this in any way conflicts with WJR. Of course, WJR is the charity that we concern ourselves with in the UK. But I think it's, I'm assuming that for Israel, other charities are dealing with this situation, and I implore anybody who wishes to give money to Israeli charities at the present time, they do so specifically for the Olim going to Israel. If anybody wants to discuss with me which these are, be pleased to do so.
Thank you. Thank you. The next question, Marilyn Keane. You all seem to be shy on the floor. Marilyn.
Good morning. Thank you, President. I would like to thank World Jewish Relief for giving such a good update. It would be really helpful if either World Jewish Relief or through the Board of Deputies could please disseminate this information to deputies, which we can then pass on to members of our synagogues. So many of our members have given to World Jewish Relief, and I'm sure it'd be really helpful that they should know what the present position is as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, indeed. Thank you. Amos Schonfield. And again, I would encourage those shy people on the floor. Not Jerry Lewis. You've had one question. Some other shy people. Amos.
Thank you, Marie. Amos Schonfield, Deputy for Masorti Judaism and co-chair of the Social Justice Committee. Marilyn's question reminded me of a very important email that landed in all of your inboxes on Friday. It's from Adam Ma'anit, one of the board staff members, regarding an important action that we all should be taking and disseminating to our constituencies to make sure that they're taking the same action, which is that we should be writing to our MPs to ensure that they vote against the upcoming Nationality and Borders Bill that is coming to Parliament on Tuesday. So we should be today, tomorrow and Tuesday morning emailing our MPs, particularly if they are government MPs who are more likely to vote for a government bill. And we are aware that there is the likelihood of a government rebellion or a Conservative Party rebellion on this bill, which would be so powerful for this. The Ukraine crisis is not the first, and nor will it likely be the last refugee crisis. And to attack the asylum system that so many refugees rely on by means of this bill, which will enable offshore detention, which will criminalize refugees on the basis of how they arrive, that will also open up anyone who can get citizenship anywhere else in the world, which includes all British Jews, open them up to losing their citizenship. These are all things that are attacks on the values that we hold dear and the instruments and the values that we've relied on as a Jewish community here in the UK. So if you've never written to your MP before, or if your MP knows you by first name and by your email address, it's so important for you to write to your MP, and that's why the board has supported this project of the Social Justice Committee. If you have any questions about this, either email Adam or myself. There is a template email for you to simply fill in the details of your details, your MP's details, and it's ready to go. So please do this at the earliest opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Amos, for speaking about that so eloquently, so very, very important. And the template email will be available, and I'd like to thank Amos also for all of his work, and to Talia Khain that they do as part of the Social Justice Committee. Thank you. Next is going to be Penina, and again, any shy people from the floor, not Jerry Lewis, someone else. Humour's always good, must be able to come to the stand. Otherwise, we will leave it to those online. Penina.
Oh, thank you. My question is about the arts, if that's okay. Sorry, I'm just trying to read my scrunched up notes by my dog. Anyway, it's about Whoopi Goldberg's comment on, the Holocaust was not about race. It's a bunch of white people attacking another bunch of white people, let them get on with it. I wanted to ask if the international group, after her apology, are considering asking her to do more than a verbal apology and, have some action here, like speaking to Holocaust survivors and Jewish communities. And can I just squeeze in another question with regards to the arts? Roger Waters and The Wall tour, his comments like Zionism is an ugly stain which needs to be gently removed. And on his huge pigs, he has a Magen David, a Star of David, next to the sickle and hammer. Before online, they were auctioning off pieces of the pig. And considering the crisis in Ukraine, this is really bad. He's going to do a tour in America where there are already about 733 hate groups. And he's going to do a tour in England the following year. And I wondered if we could do something about this.
Can I say in relation to Whoopi Goldberg, I was absolutely appalled and disgusted by the comments. I do believe, however, that our colleagues at ADL in the US have spent a lot of time trying to deal with this situation, and Whoopi Goldberg has given her apologies and is working to try and work with the community. And I think it's very important to let the Americans carry on and deal with that, but it totally was not acceptable. It was very, very painful to see her doing that. And if there is any repetition of any words like that, we would definitely want to become involved. But at the present time, I think ADL have spent a lot of time trying to work with her to get her into the right place. Roger Waters, absolutely, Penina, absolutely agree. We will look at that and we will consider what action we will take if there is going to be a tour here. Definitely, it's very sad. It's horrific to see people, especially in the arts that we think are beautiful. I've always expressed my huge concerns about Roald Dahl. Despite, for example, his beautiful books, the disgusting anti-Semitism that he exhibited, and it is something that we need to make sure that we continue to tackle and we don't take our eye off the ball. Thank you. We now have a question from the two questions from the floor. You were second. Please come to the stand. For those watching at home, could you just give us a small period of time? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. A reminder from the floor, name and constituent.
Martin Raven from Wimbledon. I'm the last person, I think, who could be accused of being shy. And so I'm delighted to be able to make a point and possibly lead it into a question. But the point really is that I was an observer at the International Division meeting this week, and we had the most magnificent intervention or speech from an outside body. We were so impressed. And the comment was that, although generally having outside speakers is a bit of a waste of time, in fact, this was an excellent intervention, and it was from World Jewish Relief. And so we were so pleased. I thought it was very good. My second point would be, I was very proud to see Melinda Simmons on the meeting this morning. Another example of somebody who's invited to speak. Melinda Simmons has made the Foreign Office look outstanding. Very impressed. I have to say that because I used to be a member of the Foreign Office. And so she has turned the reputation of the Foreign Office, I think, extremely well. I think we should congratulate her. My final point really is the question, which is, if the experience of having World Jewish Relief come to speak to the international division was so successful, are the other groups going to do the same and sort of almost lift the ban, the equivalent of a ban on outside speakers? Because it seems to me to be well worth doing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, both for coming to the floor for what you said in your question. There is not a ban on speakers coming to division meetings. It's got to be a matter for the chair. All I can say is I'm very proud of the speakers that we've had today. There was a period where deputies did not want to have many speakers, but I think we'll all agree it's quality of speakers that matters, and it is important that we do hear from our community a wide range of views, not just from ourselves, but from people that are inspirational and have a huge role to play. I think you are the last person who wanted to come to the stand.
Adrian Cohen, Highgate United. Madam President, there have been two well-meaning questions raised today about things that have happened in the United States. And you rightly drew attention to the fact that there is the Anti-Defamation League, and obviously there are other well-organised communal organisations in America, including the AJC. And so I just wondered whether you would agree that us sort of regularly intervening in affairs which happen in America, however well intended, would reasonably lead to American organisations commenting on affairs as they arise within the UK, and then we'd have a multiplicity of affairs, a multiplicity of voices speaking about incidents happening in America and happening in the UK, which could be a recipe for chaos should we not give our support to the AJC and the ADL and other organisations in the States who are doing an excellent job, and use our own limited political capital and resources to focus on those issues of that nature. And obviously everything is always subject to exception, but we should focus our efforts on those incidents that happen closer to home. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, we do, of course, focus on the UK. We do sometimes comment in other jurisdictions, but we generally will contact our colleagues or organisations there, and there isn't any need to duplicate. And we would definitely respect what ADL have done, as I said, in the US with Whoopi Goldberg. So I would agree that we do need to move on, but I have got a hand going up many times at the back of the room from Jerry Lewis. I will allow this one quick question, and then we will be moving on. It's been such a long time. It's actually a pleasure to have you back again for another question. No, may your question be quick so that we can move
Jerry
on.
Lewis Hampstead, very quick. One of the biggest criticisms of the board, especially during the lockdown, has been the capacity of the board and its spokesman to put out statements reacting to X, Y and Z all the time. I'm not one of those critics, but that is the way things are done these days. There's always the question, why doesn't the board do something as distinct from saying something? And I'm just going to make one very brief suggestion with regard to amnesty, because I've sat through so many amnesty press conferences in my life. As a journalist, I'm sickened by their attitudes. I was furious with your predecessor who tried to cozy up to amnesty with the disastrous results. You may recollect, I think it was in your early days on the board, Madam President, and we were forced into a disgraceful deal which ended up just being rubbish by the board itself. Excuse me. The simple suggestion is as follows. Instead of just condemning amnesty for its anti-Semitism and its disgusting attitude and bias against Israel, it's about time we actually said to the charity commissioners, please investigate this charity. We believe it's breaking the law and we need to deal with it as quickly as possible. That way the board is seen to be doing something rather than just saying. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. And just to confirm, there's certainly been no cozying up by me to Amnesty. I've not had any direct interaction with them, no meeting, nor would I, and they would certainly not find me cosy. They are absolutely condemned. Can I just, before we move on, yes, we're not going to be. We've got our focus, Jerry. We're not going to be spending our time finding ways to report them further to the Charity Commission. Our comments about Amnesty's being a disgraceful report, that's different to actually reporting them to the Charity Commission. There would have to be legal issues that would enable you to do that. That's not the role of us today to do that. We've got our board plan, which deputies have all had, and I note that there hasn't yet been any comment on that. So I want to say before we leave the President's statement, we hope that you will all look at the board's plan, and we have consultation open for a period of 2 weeks. It would be really good to be able to get some feedback from you. It would be appreciated, and we hope that you'll like the look of the plan. We will personalise it before issuing, but we will send round an email again tomorrow with the address for there to be any comments made. Depending on the comments, we may have focus groups, but we would like to get the plan up and running as soon as possible. And can deputies please bear in mind the plan is a living document. Circumstances change, priorities can change, but we've got a very good basis upon which to proceed. And there is a huge strength of feeling, just like we've heard from Jerry. We want to do so many things. We have to have our focus. We also have a limit on some things that we can do, some things that we can't do, even where there is that strength of feeling. So we are trying to have our focus where it needs to be. So it would be really good to hear from some of you. No one has made any comment to the executive report that's been sent. So I haven't got any questions there. So I'm going to thank you for your feedback. Oh, there is one question. There we go. And then we will be moving on to the first divisional report, which will be presented by Jonathan Coles.
Yeah, Joe Millis, Bromley Reform. On the executive report, am I to understand correctly that there will when organisations want to rejoin, you say no Q&As from deputies. Does that mean those organisations which applied before and failed can reapply now without the Q&A that they faced?
Any organisation can apply if they were unsuccessful in joining, and whatever the rules are now from the Constitution Committee, the rules will apply to all organisations. So the fact they were unsuccessful in the past, if they were, doesn't make any difference. Everybody will be treated equally. I now have a second question from the floor, and this has to be the last question. Apologies, we will have to move on.
Rob Sassoon, S&P Sephardi Community. Just to follow up on that, I think some of the issues that may have arisen from previous organisations that wished to join the board who were not accepted were to do with, rightly or wrongly, some perceived misinformation about the organisation or its politics or people involved with it. So my question is that given that the Q&A was an opportunity for deputies to seek clarification on the quality of the information or misinformation that they received about those organisations, what structures do the board now have in place to ensure that when an organisation is presented to the board as a potential new member, that we are given the correct, appropriate information about that organisation? Thank you.
We have our fantastic Constitution Committee that we have to trust to do their job properly. Papers will be given to deputies. That won't prevent them asking questions when they receive the papers, but that's what the Constitution Committee is there for, and that's their job. Historically, there wasn't extensive debates at the board before the vote would be taken to allow organisations to join. And we have to remember, we're a community. We need to be kind to each other. We need to work together. If an organisation wants to join the board and they're a bona fide organisation, let's try and not let politics stand in the way or misinformation. Let the Constitution Committee do their job and make the recommendation or the non-recommendation. Just to finish, just to clarify a few points, there was a reference to a partnership with Amnesty, and I think the reference was actually to the partnership with Oxfam. That was from one of the deputies. And Bishop Nawalski, I may have referred to him as a rabbi, which of course he is not. So there you are. He, however, was absolutely delightful, and I know that Bishop Nawalski really would value anybody that has got volunteering capabilities when the time comes. And if any of you are Russian or Ukrainian speakers, I know that he said that he would be very pleased to hear from you, and he really was somebody who absolutely values a relationship with the Jewish community. The most beautiful cathedral just off Oxford Street. I don't know if any of you have ever been there. It's near to Selfridges. And if any of you want to show your support, I'm sure they will be very happy. We actually have one last question. I'm really sorry. I'm allowed the question if you're really quick, because I don't want to disallow you, Mervyn, your question, and then we have to move on. Mervyn. This is the last question.
Thank you. It's really relating to questions which came from Joy Wolf with regard to Yachad and your response, which I found, again, unsatisfactory in the same manner that I found the response to my question last month unsatisfactory. You relate the acceptance that social media provides the means of people being able to disagree with your views, which is excellent. However, the contents in this respect relate to my recollection of Yachad and its Kaddish for Gaza terrorists, and equally its claims to the British government that Israel was undertaking desolation to a group of Bedouin who were not allowed to be on land that's established with the Israel legal authorities. And that was a disrespect, in my opinion, to the government to raise such a matter. And it continues the point that all that I ever hear of Yachad are contemptible matters, non-factual, put forward by Yachad. And that is a genuine, normal practice in so many instances through social media. And I find your response to be unacceptable, that they should be acknowledged by you as.
Thank you. And this I'm going, sorry, Amos, you've already spoken. This will be the last question. The board is a democratic representative body. We are proud to represent the full diversity and spectrum of the community. We may not all agree with Yachad, and everybody makes their feelings known. They were democratically elected as an organisation to the board. If people find their view, what they've done, abhorrent or offensive, they are at liberty to make their views known. But Yachad is not going to be turfed out of the board. My response, I apologise if that is unsatisfactory, but they are a legitimate member of the board, voted by deputies several triennium ago. So I think that we need to try as a community to have respect for that. What we need to have is tolerance and respect for how people are presenting their views. I can't take any more questions. I know there now probably wants to be a response by Yachad, but I'm sorry, we are going to need to move on. I have to reiterate again, the response in the President's statement is my response, and they are a part of the Board of Deputies and we will have to allow everybody to be able to represent their views. And I'm sure perhaps this may come up again in the international section, potentially. Jonathan, thank you so much for taking the chair today. Would you please present your report, and I will tell you, I will ask people to ask any questions because I've got access to seeing and you haven't, so just to explain that to everybody at home or in the room. Over to you, Jonathan.
Thank you, Marie. It's great to be here. What I thought maybe I would do, instead of running through each activity, is just use two of the last questions that mentioned our division from Martin and Adrian, and just share with the plenary how David Mendoza Wolfson and I have sort of looked at a couple of the issues that were raised. The first, regarding the speakers. David and I have talked a lot about speakers because last triennium, Sheila brought in absolutely wonderful speakers, and I thought it was one of the best parts of serving on the division. David and I have taken more of a wait-and-see attitude, a bit as the plenary has done, and I'm glad Martin gave that great feedback, because I personally felt that the World Jewish Relief speaker was one of the best that I've ever heard at a board event. She was so prepared, so professional, and I just would like to share with the board just a personal reflection, because right before she came, I had a conversation with a journalist who the prior 2 weeks had been going from the Polish border towns to Lviv, and he told me that he was absolutely repulsed by how many, quote, aid organizations were there acting in very unprofessional, circus was the word. And hearing that and feeling very sad in such a horrible situation that this was happening. There are so many do-gooders who actually aren't doing good. Then to come into the division and have this woman from World Jewish Relief be the absolute epitome of professionalism, of compassion, a real credit to your organization, I think to Jewish communities. We asked some very difficult questions to her, and she had a perfect answer for everything. So I just wanted to share that, and Morris, thank you very much. You really, at least through this woman, you have a wonderful team there, and I would urge everybody to look really carefully. If you want to give, make sure you're giving it to an organization. I mean, I would say just start with World Jewish Relief. I'm not sure if there's a reason to go unless you know other organizations personally. Secondly, Adrian, on the issue of America, David and I have talked a lot, because obviously in the international division, once you take away the UK, there's a huge amount of possible activity. And what we don't want to do is find ourselves taking on so many issues in so many places and not getting anything done and maybe getting in people's way. So I want to just say a couple words about the 5 working groups, because the 5 working groups that we've created in our division are not created capriciously or randomly. So for example, we have one that's called the Commonwealth Working Group that's chaired by David Saffer, who's perhaps the most experienced veteran of the international division. And the idea there is to find areas where not everybody is already looking and acting. And our belief is that as a point of principle, we will not stay away from America or excuse ourselves from debates, et cetera. But as a priority, we haven't made it a priority. And I think also because Marie and the staff and other people in the Board of Deputies are so tied into groups where they're in discussions with American groups, we haven't felt that that's sort of the internationals division's place. So we've been trying to find areas where we can really make an impact. And one of the areas that we've identified is the UN. And we're extremely fortunate to have Efrat Sofer, who's very well known for her expertise in dealing with fighting anti-Semitism at the UN. Martin Raven actually is a former British Foreign Office officer for his whole career at the UN. We have great resources, so we're focused on trying to find areas where we can make a little bit more of an impact. And then the other working group I'll just mention, and then I'll save a little bit of the time for questions, is the Central and Eastern Europe working group, which in our mind was to be a rotating group. And really we picked Central and Eastern Europe for a number of reasons. One is we have Ivan Sloboda, who's in our division, who's been in the division many triennials and is a huge expert and gives us language access and contacts to local communities. But also we were very concerned about the narratives regarding the way the Holocaust is dealt with, rule of law issues in Poland, et cetera. And so that group got launched and was very much focused on Poland. But I think going forward, obviously, I think, unfortunately, Putin's war has created a before and after. And you've even seen, like Poland, which was the most criticized country, perhaps, in the European Union, is all of a sudden now this wonderful country that is the savior to so many refugees. So we need to probably revisit what that group is going to do and how to engage. And so next plenary, I'm sure there'll be an update on that.
Thank you for your extensive discussion on that. Thank you. Does anyone have any questions? Otherwise, we will move on as we are running late. Thank you. Thank you for that. It's very, very informative. Thank you.
One question from Lawrence Julius.
Ah, sorry, I didn't see you there. Lawrence? Yes. Hello, Lawrence.
Right. Okay. Right. Lawrence Julius Harif. The UNHCR have established a permanent and ongoing inquiry on Israel. It is essential that the board join Jewish organizations and groups in making submissions to the UNHCR Commission. This is a really nasty, ongoing commission to delegitimize Israel. Jewish refugees from Arab countries are an important part of the narrative. They are not just a talking point, they are key to understanding the Middle East. This is a story of intolerance, ethnic cleansing, dispossession of non-Muslims, and relentless attempts to destroy the world's only non-Jewish state, if not on the battlefield, then through delegitimization and demonization. Harif have a large archive of information and would like to do everything to support a submission for the board and really encourage the board to make a submission to this. Thank you.
Thank you. Apologies that we do not have any further time for questions, but please, can you contact Jonathan offline? I'm sure he'll be very, very happy to take any of your questions. Next to deliver her report, Amanda Bowman, please.
Thank you. Good morning, just about still. Good morning, deputies. Lovely to be with those of you in person and to do our first proper hybrid meeting. I want to share with you the updated Jewish Manifesto for Local Government. It was produced with input from deputies from my division and from beyond the division, and also in consultation with our communal bodies. We first featured it at our Yorkshire Councillor Seminar, which took place last Sunday, which was delivered in partnership with the Leeds Rep Council and with the JLC. The seminar welcomed councillors from 11 different councils, and we were delighted that Tracy Brabin, the West Yorkshire Mayor, took the opportunity to announce at the seminar that West Yorkshire will be adopting the IHRA definition on anti-Semitism. We're asking council candidates in the upcoming elections to back the 10 commitments, she says, that are on page 2. You can't see them, I'm sure, on the screen, but you can see the full manifesto on the Board of Deputies website. But we're asking council candidates to back the 10 commitments, and wherever you live, If you'd like to help secure your local council candidates' support for these commitments, please contact either me or Daniel Elton, and we'll get you involved. Next week is the so-called Israel Apartheid Week, where campuses around the country will see lectures and rallies promoting BDS. I wrote to the Secretary of State for Education asking him to contact Vice-Chancellors to remind them of their duty of care to Jewish students and staff who often experience both harassment and hostility on campus during Israel Apartheid Week. I'm also aware that UJS are planning events promoting peace during Israel Apartheid Week, which hopefully will be giving the positive message of collaboration. And the final thing I want to just highlight, which I highlighted in my report, is that on the 31st of March, we'll be holding our open meeting of the Division on Anti-Semitism. And if any deputies would like to attend, please do let me or Joe Crossley, our new Public Affairs Officer, know. And we'll be delighted to welcome you to that. That will be held virtually. And now I'll open up to questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Thank you. One from the floor. Ido, would you please go to the stand?
Marie, I can see Ben's screen, so I should be able to manage the questions. Ido, thank you.
Ido Ben-Shaul, Reform Judaism. It's not a question, it's actually a comment regarding contacting MPs with a 10-point manifesto. I had personally an amazing experience in the last two national election campaigns. I wrote to my local MP 3 weeks before the elections, and people were laughing at me for doing it. And I got a 10-page response, absolutely listing every single item, what the local MP has been doing and what he would be doing. So don't underestimate the impact of access to your local MP from the grassroots. It makes a huge difference. The next election campaign, I was approached personally by both candidates, and they both commented on the manifesto. So that works, and it's very important, so please do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ido.
Thank you. Thank you, Amanda. Could I now please ask Edwin, could you please present your report? Thank you.
Yes, good afternoon, deputies. I attended and chaired my first division meeting 10 days ago, so I am not yet ready to reveal the Edwin Shuker report, but this is, I thank Vice Chair Andrew Gilbert for holding on the fort. And what I would like to draw your attention is to the strategic plan where it matters to my division. We've got 11 points, and on that we will be basing the subgroups on each of those 11 pledges. Please let me have your comments, additions, and before we assign the groups, you will have those 11 groups reporting on my report every single plenary meeting, and we will be judged, and we pledge to perform and to implement all these, what I consider our manifesto. So please give us your comments as early as possible. And also, I'd like to bring to your attention that we will be going out for a by-election, possibly for up to 3 people. And so get your manifestos ready, get excited, read what we do, and if you could help on that, please, please, please stand and let us have a full division, full working. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you. Would you apologise if you're on Zoom? Richard Sassoon's just coming to the microphone.
Richard Sassoon, S&P Sephardi Community. 3 points. Firstly, I'd like to be the first deputy from the microphone to welcome Edwin back onto the top table. And I hope and pray that he will be as successful in the rest of this triennium as he was in his previous triennium. My second point is I would like to pay tribute to his predecessor in one respect, and that is the series of lectures on Israel and the history of Israel that both he and Michael Uyghur have put together. And I would like to seek Edwin's reassurance that that series will continue, because I found it a very, very worthwhile exercise, and I commend it to all deputies to try and attend those lectures. And my third and final point is reading your divisional report, the social action report, and the board plan. I seem to notice perhaps a playing down of the Eco Synagogue project. And I would like to ask why that is so, because I think it's a very, very important part of what the board has been doing, and I'd like to know what's happening with that. Thank you.
Right. First of all, I thank you for your greetings, and I hope and pray that I will live up to the expectations and do better than last time. On the education, Israel education, that has moved to Michael, who is more able to, who has already doing it anyway, but his knowledge and his impressive stand for in Hebrew, Michael, and you've made us so proud to watch you field these questions, these hard questions from the anchor people from Israel. I really felt a huge, and I thank you for that massively. And I also want to add my thanks for the work that Geoffrey Leader has done. I know the President has done a beautiful testimony, but Geoffrey is my hero, and I'd like to add my my thanks to him for 25 years of service. One more thing that I forgot as well is that the implementation of the Stephen Bush report is the core of my work, and we will have a very active subgroup on that, especially where it matters to the education field. As far as the Eco Synagogue is concerned, the President asked me to give her the response. So
just to let you know, Eco Synagogue is absolutely wonderful and amazing. It absolutely has our support. It's not being played down, but Eco Synagogue is going to become an independent charity, and we will be continuing our fantastic partnership with Eco Synagogue. So we want to give everybody that reassurance that the support is as strong as, if not better than it's ever been. But congratulations, it's such a success that they are going to become an independent charity. And the board, of course, has successfully incubated many successful charities, and it's our privilege and honour to be able to do that. Your next question, Edwin, Jeremy Schatz. We can't yet hear Jeremy. Just try to get you unmuted, Jeremy.
Yep.
Thank you.
Still calling.
You're still not unmuted.
Hello.
There you are. Hello.
Jeremy Schatz, Southgate Progressive Synagogue. Edwin, sorry, I have no intention really to ambush you here, but I raised the question that is on the list of questions and answers that were for this plenary session regarding sanctions applied independently by 2 Jewish schools against a Israeli theatre group, children's theatre group, that were under sponsorship from the JNF. Obviously, this was in response to the unfortunate situation with Samuel Hayek that we're all aware of. And the board has already censured the JNF for their poor response. However, in this case, at least one of the schools actually completely rejected the appearance of this children's theatre group to the detriment of the children. So I feel this is a very much an overreaction. The Emmanuel College actually just requested that they remove all insignia and all reference to the JNF, which might have been a more moderate response. But actually to cancel the appearance by the group seems to me a massive own goal, achieving nothing but depriving Jewish children of a positive educational and entertainment experience, which would have been a great thing for them. This really just seems to me a really sad thing to do. And I think it would be helpful if at least maybe we gave some guidance to Jewish schools in doing stuff like this. I know we can't tell them what to do, but really, I think this is very sad. Thank you.
Thank you. The President came to my rescue. She's pointing out that your question has been answered, and I will repeat it. The Board of Deputies voted to censor the JNF, but there is certainly no board policy to cancel the organization and its activities. It is up to individual Jewish organizations how they choose to demonstrate any concerns they might have about the JNF or whether they should withdraw their cooperation. I also have to refer that the JNF is currently under investigation by Charity Commission, but it's definitely not the policy of the board to censor activities on its behalf.
Thank you. The next question, you have Anthony Adler, followed by Gary Wernick.
Hello again. Apologies if there's a baby yelling in the background. My son is now back in the house. Anthony Adler from St. Albans Missouri Synagogue. I want to pass on my congratulations, Edwin. And I just wondered whether you would be able to give us a little bit more detail on the kind of the time frame for the Commission into Disability in the Jewish community that you have mentioned previously in some of the documentation. There's considerable enthusiasm for this from members of my synagogue, actually, because over the last few years we have informally made quite a lot of changes to how we work and approach things in order to be more accessible to a wide range of members. So there's definitely an appetite and enthusiasm for the commission, and I'd love to hear a little bit more about it and a bit more of a time frame so we can follow up and be positively involved.
Well, thank you, Anthony, very much. I decided to delay the announcement and the remit of that commission until we actually work out how we're implementing the Stephen Bush Commission and its recommendations. There's no point in setting up a new, and when people asking, well, what have you done about the one you spent hundreds of hours last time? Will it be the same? Will it also be shelved and forgotten? So I will first make sure that we have a working plan before announcing the remit of the next commission.
Thank you. And we have Gary Wernick.
Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Hello, Gary Wernick from Mead Hill Synagogue in Manchester. I was just wondering if there's any action or help assistance the board could give in the crossing of swords between Ofsted and various Jewish schools, including King David High School, which two of my daughters go to, which, as I'm sure many deputies are aware, is a very good school, but because of primarily matters relating to the Orthodox Jewish section and trying to accommodate that on the same campus, has caused the school to be put into special measures and marked as inadequate. And this is obviously one of the biggest schools in the Jewish schools, and has certainly by the Manchester community been seen as a star achievement.
Thanks very much. I want to tell you that last triennial, I spent a whole day in the school. I asked to be present there and to because of the importance of this school. I saw the report, I read it, I read the comments, but I have not prepared myself yet to respond to something that I feel is I should consult before I say anything about it. So I would be very happy to talk to you if you send me an email, or you don't need to, because I am actually, it's on my agenda to consult staff and the HOs on our response to that. Thank you.
Thank you. I've also had the privilege to spend time in that school, and it has been a beautiful school, and I hope that the issues can be resolved. And I know how hard Joshua Rowe has worked. Last question, Johnny Weinberg.
Yeah, it actually just follows on. And I think we'd all agree up here. I'm sorry, Johnny Weinberg, Jewish Action for Mental Health, and very pleased to be a new delegate to the board. 15 years since I've come to a board meeting. And yeah, it's the issue of, yes, there is no doubt that King David is an excellent school, as many of our Jewish schools are. But there are clearly young people and parents there who raise some concerns regarding mental health. And that's something that we would always want to see addressed. So in terms of the board's response, one would hope that, yes, there may be challenges. Yes, it may be that there are certain things about what Ofsted did that may be questionable. However, we would say that one young person with mental health issues is one young person too many, and we would always want to see that addressed. And we would hope that the board's response will be that the focus should be on addressing the issues that are raised, rather than looking at what was said in the report and starting to challenge it. It's out there anyway. There doesn't seem to be huge value in spending money on a judicial review. It would be great to see more money spent on the mental health of young people in our schools, and that does apply right across the board. So we'd also be happy, Edwin, to speak with yourself and look at those issues.
Absolutely, and actually I am a mentor to your younger deputies and intend to do so very much, and that's why I refrained from responding to the previous question, because it's not a matter of just saying the school is a great school. It actually is reading the report, taking notes of what was said, and actually consulting widely about it, and I do intend to consult with Jamie.
Thank you. Absolutely. Nothing more important than mental health. I'm really sorry there is no more time for questions for Edwin. Paul, I do apologise. I'm sure that Edwin will take your question offline. Could we please come on to the report that will be presented by Ben Crown? And just for housekeeping, just to let you know, before we finish, we are going to be hearing from Henry Grunwald, and we will then be closing the meeting. So we do not have a huge amount of time. Ben Crown, would you please present your report? Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much, Marie. Afternoon, everyone. The deputies have my report. I just want to put out a few points and flag a couple of issues that have come up in the last couple of days and in response to papers and so forth. So I think, first of all, I led my report with this. It's been a very good couple of months for common contribution. We're running ahead of where we were last year, running ahead of budget. We're doing nicely compared with receipts for last year. Thank you to all the deputies in the room and online who have helped and continue to help with that process. I know a lot of synagogues who haven't already sent out their membership statements, send them out either before Pesach or between Pesach and Shavuot. This really is the crucial time to make sure that you're advocating for the board, distributing emails, speaking about it at council and shore boards and so forth, just to ensure that we keep collecting in the funds and enable us to do our work. And in particular, common contribution as sort of a mass contribution from tens of thousands of people is such an important demonstration of our of our centrality and our support from the community. So thanks to everyone who's been involved with that, and please keep up the good work. Just a few bits following up from other bits in the report. A couple of the other HOs have mentioned the board plan, which has gone around to deputies in an advanced draft. I think we're all very proud of where it is at the moment. We look forward to getting feedback from people. One of the things we'll need to do to follow up is to reach out to deputies with specific skills and experiences to help take bits of it forward. So can I once again remind deputies who have not yet sent in their skills form, the deputies agreement and so forth, I will have them circulated once more this coming week. The more information we have, the easier it is to engage and involve people. Next, following a couple of requests at the previous meeting, the papers for this meeting have now been sort of stratified by level of distribution. There are papers which are marked confidential, which are internal reports to deputies only. There are papers which are private, which are the President's statement, the minutes of the meetings, and the reports of the other 3 divisions. Those can be sent around, as deputies have asked, to their constituencies and so forth. We have split out the questions to deputies which are internal. I appreciate this is slightly convoluted, but if I could ask everyone, just pay attention to the different categories and act accordingly. I hope it will enable us to still give deputies the level of detail that they currently have, without running into issues around confidentiality and privacy and personal data and so forth. The regional weekend is our next meeting. We're going to be in Manchester, the 20th to 22nd of May. More details will go around in the next couple of weeks. We will be, subsidising the food and hospitality to a certain extent. We'll be covering travel expenses. There'll be an updated policy. The one thing we are not arranging or subsidising is accommodation. So we encourage deputies who are able to offer home hospitality to let us know, or to reach out to other deputies they know. And if deputies want to stay in a hotel and want to come up, they should sort of look at a couple of the nice hotels in town. I'm told are already reasonably booked up. We will be all over Manchester over the Shabbat, but we will be broadly based somewhere between the centre of town and Prestwich. And I think a couple of sample hotels have already gone out. So more details to follow on that, but please mark your diaries. If you can make it up to Manchester for a weekend, that's fantastic. If not, we'll be doing a big brunch and then an afternoon plenary on the Sunday. And also just to flag that the June, July and September plenaries, when we're back in London, will also be in the afternoon. That will sort of hopefully help facilitate regional deputies to get to London more easily. As Edwin mentioned, there are going to be by-elections. There have been various departures and bits of turnover in, I think, all the divisions apart from mine. I know the HOs are chasing up individual deputies who maybe haven't come to meetings. Do you want to stay? Do you not want to stay? We hope to have that resolved by the end of next week, and then we'll send out an email with details of the election process. We'll plan to do them online, as we've done previously, and we'll do them all across the divisions. Maybe 4 or 5 of them we'll see in one go on one day, which should hopefully make it all a little bit easier. Hybrid meetings, we'll do a hybrid meeting in May in Manchester. It is really, really great to see deputies here in person. I hope to see more people in person in May. I hope to see even more people in person in subsequent meetings going forwards. I apologise for people who've seen me on my phone. I am just doing the logistics for this meeting. I do not have a busy social schedule running simultaneously right now. And could I remind the deputies in the room, if possible, to stay for 5 minutes when we've wrapped up, just to do a little technical debrief. One thing which was in the papers, which I'm quite excited about, again, we'll hope to get details out next week, is the new deputies speech programme. I'm just going to pass over for a second to Rob Sassoon, who's been one of the deputies involved in that working group. Just talk it through for a minute.
Hello, Rob Sassoon, S&P Sephardi Community again. So this, you can find all the information on page 3 of the Treasurer's report, and I hope you won't mind, Ben, that I'm about to read out information that is marked as confidential on the papers. So as long as I've got your blessing to do so, thank you. I won't go through all of the details, but the gist of it is that we know that over if half of deputies speak once in a triennium or not at all, and what we're really trying to encourage is those deputies who haven't spoken or haven't spoken as much to sort of give them an opportunity just to come up and give maybe 3 minutes of their time just to tell us a little bit about themselves, who they are, who they represent, why they want to be on the board, what they want to achieve from the board. And so, you know, because we know that probably 10–15% of deputies are the people who speak the most often, and indeed there are people who speak in every meeting, and Jerry's cheering at the back of the room. I wasn't going to name names, but you know, we know that there are deputies that speak more than others, so what we really want to do is give those deputies who don't speak for whatever reason the opportunity to be able to do so. So there will be some communications coming out in the coming couple of weeks. We're hoping to get about 20 minutes in the May, June and July plenaries, just to allow maybe 6 deputies at each meeting, just to sort of give a brief introduction of themselves. We will provide any sort of support or guidance as best we can. So do look out for an email which will probably come from the board, but it will come from both myself and Marilyn Keane, who's a deputy for Bournemouth Hebrew Congregation. So we're the 2 deputies leading on this, and hopefully we'll be able to hear some new voices at some forthcoming plenaries. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Thank you, Rob, and to Marilyn for their involvement. And like I said, we'll get something out this coming week just to start signing up people, and also hopefully some volunteers to help support people who want a little bit of practice before they speak at the plenary. I see no questions, so I will pass back to Marie.
Thank you. Because we don't have a huge time, but Jerry, I'm sure that was just humour on your part. If it isn't, I'm sure that then can take it offline. I'm just going to stand up now because you might have noticed that there's something behind me. So Henry Grunwald is going to speak to us very shortly, and Yom HaShoah is a fantastic collaboration. I want to thank Henry, who's got COVID at the moment. He's going to join us by Zoom, and Neil Martin and all the team for all the work that is done for Yom HaShoah. This is a plaque that's going to be put up in synagogues, and I'm just going to hand over to Henry, who's going to now speak to you, but I want you all to be able to see the plaque. Henry, we wish you better as well. We wish you a refuah shalema.
Marie, thank you very much. I'm glad to say that today is the 2nd day I've tested negative, so the shackles are coming off. Madam President, fellow deputies, thank you for allowing me this opportunity of doing 2 things today. One is to remind everybody of Yom HaShoah. The Yom HaShoah collaboration, as Marie puts it, under the auspices of the board, has done sterling work for I don't know how many years now in organizing the national event. For the last 2 years, because of COVID, it's had to be online, which I think initially we were a little concerned about. But it actually meant that we had far larger audiences watching than had ever been able to come together in person. This year, rather like today's board meeting, and I congratulate you on it, it's great to see the board in such good form, the Yom HaShoah event is going to be hybrid. There will be some of us and a few invited people, participants, at the Jewish Care campus in London, from where the event will be live streamed, and we hope that it will have a very, very, very large audience. It's the 27th of April. The event itself will start at 7:30 p.m. There may be some things happening earlier, but I'd ask you all to put that in your diaries if it isn't already there. It's an important day for the community to be able to renew the pledge that we ask people to make each year, to come together to remember the Holocaust and to ensure that so far as we are able to, nothing like that happens again. The words never again, unfortunately, have not meant never again. And when we look at what's happening in Ukraine, we can see just how easily things can slip from the civilized world that we like to think exists. It doesn't. But for us as Jews, it's very important that we repeat each year the pledge to remember the Holocaust. And we do that not just for ourselves, we do it in honor of all of the victims of the Holocaust and out of respect for the survivors that we're still fortunate enough to have with us. But the second thing, and Marie has just outlined it, just shown it to you, is a legacy board. This is a project that we wanted to start 2 years ago. COVID prevented us from doing it. This is a board which we hope, which we intend, which we want will be up in every synagogue, every school, every community building in our community up and down the country. And we hope to be able to get these to you over the coming year free of charge in return for a commitment that it will be given a prominent place in whichever building it is, and that each year Yom HaShoah will be remembered. There are three important factors why we ask for this to happen, and they're set out on the board. You may not all be able to see it, but I'm going to read the relevant bits out to you. Our community pledge, Zachor, to remember, honoring the memory of the 6 million Jews who perished in the Holocaust and the contribution to our country of the survivors and refugees. Haggadah, to tell, ensuring that the truth about the tragedy of the Holocaust is told and passed down to each generation so that it is never forgotten and can never be denied. And l'chaim, to life, leading good lives and being prepared to stand up and speak out against anti-Semitism, racism, and discrimination of all kinds to shape a more tolerant future, declaring never again. And fellow deputies, it's really important that we do this now and don't leave it to the future. We want to do this because once we were surrounded by survivors and refugees and their stories were easily available to us, it was recent history. Sadly, there are fewer with us each year, and there's an increasingly large vacuum that must be filled. We owe it to them and the memory of the victims to ensure that the UK Jewish community achieves all the objectives that I've just outlined before it is too late for the remaining survivors to know that their legacy is in safe hands. The responsibility, the duty is on us to pass this baton on to generations yet to come. And this legacy board is a way to ensure that every community, every school, every synagogue building knows that that pledge is there for them to renew each year. We will be beginning this on Yom HaShoah itself by unveiling 5 or 6 pledges, I'm not entirely sure how many yet, in different places up and down the country. And I say again, over the coming year, we will be making these boards available to your communities so that you can all take an active part in ensuring that we mean what we say when we pledge to remember. Madam President, thank you very much for allowing me this opportunity of outlining not only the plans for this year's Yom HaShoah, but for this important legacy board to take the initiative forward to future generations. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you to Henry. You are a fantastic past president, and the work that you do for Yom HaShoah is absolutely incredible. Thanks to you, thanks to Neil Martin, and there is nothing more important than remembrance. And as Henry has said, we absolutely have the responsibility to make sure that the Holocaust is remembered, and every year, unfortunately, there are fewer and fewer survivors. So we have to make sure that we continue to make sure that there is in place a system of how we're going to move forwards in the future. So thank you. Can we just finish by thanking everybody who's have joined the meeting, whether you are in person, whether you are online. It's been a real pleasure to see you today. My thoughts and my prayers, and I'm sure all of us feel exactly the same, are with the victims and everyone who is suffering in Ukraine in this terrible, terrible war. We want it over as soon as possible. We all pray for peace. We will all do what we can to help in this terrible situation. Thank you, deputies. We will see you soon, and thank you again for the meeting today. Thank you.